Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to dive into Playwright Hooks and Groups, the secret to organizing your tests and keeping your suite clean and reliable. You might have hundreds of tests or even a few tests, and it might feel messy sometimes or hard to maintain. Then this video is for you. We will cover beforeAll, afterAll, beforeEach and afterEach hooks and why they make your life so much easier. So first, let's look at this demo script which has the login suite, and I will show you step by step how we use the hooks in this test. So here you can see the test here, the Playwright script, and we have the test that logs into this demo website, and we have the hooks here which we will go through one by one. So we have the test here, as you can see, which is a successful login. We have the first suite that logs into the website and make sure we are logged in. So we first log into the site and then we make sure that we have logged in successfully by checking this header text, and then we log out. So this is the test we have, and then we have another test that logs in but with using a wrong password, and we check that the password is invalid message appears on the screen. And then there is another test that logs into the clicks on the submit button without entering any details for the username or password, and we get the error message username is invalid. So we have different types of these tests. All these tests have one common thing, and that is going to the home page. So this test needs to go to the home page and not enter anything, and this test does the same thing but it enters the wrong password, and then this test again goes to the same home page but enters the correct credential, and we log in successfully, and for example log out, and then here we log in successfully and then log out. So all these tests need the common step, which is navigating to the main page, the login page. So we can use a hook, as I have used here, called the beforeAll. So when you say test.beforeAll, there are two types of hooks, before hooks. There is beforeAll and beforeEach. I will tell you the difference between the two. beforeAll is when you want to do common things. For example, you might set up a data for your test, like creating the user first in the database or wherever you store your credentials. So you need to set up the correct credentials and then use the credential in your test, in all your tests. So this beforeAll, what it means is it runs before all the tests are executed, and it runs only once. So when you call it inside the scope, here you have seen the Playwright script name is, the suite name is login and secure area. Actually, this is the actual test that has the different scenarios of successful, unsuccessful, and then checking the wrong password message. So all these are in this one test, which is test.describe and the suite name. So inside the suite, you are going to put the beforeAll hook and the before hook. So beforeAll is, it runs once before running all the tests. So we have this 3 tests here, success. So you can see the highlighted test cases. So before running all these test cases, the whatever code you put inside this beforeAll block or the beforeAll method, if it applies to your case, so it's going to run the code inside this beforeAll hook once. It's going to run once and then going to start running your test sequentially one by one. So as I said before, you might want to run this only once. For this test, you might want to set up the username and password using the API. For example, you might use a authentication tool, so you need to set up the users there before running the test, and at the end of the test you need to clean up the user credentials also. So for that, you need to use this test.afterAll. So afterAll runs after all tests are run. That's why the name is afterAll. So as As you can see, this is a one-time cleanup for the entire suite. So the highlighted test cases we have, they are all in this one suite, but these we don't need to set up and clean up the test data that is required for this suite each time before this each test. All we need to do, all these tests require the same data setup. So whatever applicable data setup is common to all these tests, we are going to set up those things in the beforeAll. For example, you might need to clean up the existing username just to make sure there is no leftover data or anything you want to do as a one-time step that applies to all of these tests. And at the same time, whatever one-time setup you did, you want to clean that one-time setup, so you can use the afterAll. So the cleanup happens after all the tests in the suite runs. So as I mentioned, these are the shared resources like the credentials, etc., and other common setup. So that is the beforeAll and afterAll. So before all tests are run, the code in this block is executed, and afterAll is run after everything, all the tests are executed. So I will run it and show you at the end, but let's move on to other hooks. The other two hooks are beforeEach and there is an afterEach. Yeah. So just we have beforeAll and afterAll that runs once before and after all of the test cases. We have beforeEach and afterEach. So as I said before, all these test cases need to go to the home page, and then they perform different types of steps and verify the different outcomes. So what is the common step that these test cases need to do? They all need to go to the home page. So that is a common step that needs to be run before each test case. So that's why we have the name beforeEach. Before each test case runs, we execute whatever code we have in this beforeEach. In our case, before each test case runs, we need to go to the home page. So that is what we have. We are instructing the Playwright to go to the demo, the login page, and then do the and then start the test. So when this test starts, it's going to first run this line and then run the test. Once this test is over, it's going to go to the next test. So before each test, so that's why the name here called the beforeEach. So before each test starts executing, this is executed first. So that's why beforeEach. So before each test, as you can see here, before all these tests, each and every test runs, this block of code that is in this beforeEach section hook is going to be executed first, and then the rest of the tests. And in the same way, before each test we want to perform the navigation to the home page, the login page, and in the same way, after each test, at the end of each test, we need to do something common. And in this case, in this scenario, after each test we are going to log out. So instead of writing log out in each and every test, at the end of each and every test, that's going to add another line. And if anything changes, for example the HTML ID or any other selector changes, then we need to update each and every logout step in each test. So instead of adding a logout step in each test, we are going to do that logout in the afterEach method. So you can see the code here, and you can have any code that is applicable to your scenario. So that will be executed after each test. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tests. So after the end of each test, it is going to execute the afterEach block and then move to the next test. And when that test ends, it's going to execute the code in the afterEach and then move to the next test, and so on. So you can see all the common code is extracted in one place. So let's say tomorrow if the button ID changes, it is no longer a button, it might be a div section, representing the button, you can easily change in one place. If these hooks were not there, you would have had this script repeated everywhere. So you need to do a find and replace, which you might miss and make a mistake, so it's difficult to maintain, and the overall structure of the code also looks messy. But as you can see, these hooks helped us a lot in maintaining, in not only creating a clean and maintainable script, but also makes everything looks organized, and when somebody comes and looks at this, they can easily understand what's going on. Let's run this script so we can see how the test sequence is being how the test sequence of execution happens. So there are 7 tests, and it's going to run in the Chrome browser, and you can see the first thing it went is it didn't go. So before each test, it's going to execute the beforeEach. So we need to go to the home page before each test is executed, and actually there is a, even before executing beforeEach, beforeAll will be executed once, but we don't have any code right now. There is no UI or any other thing. You might put something in your scenario and it will be executed once, and then each test will be executed. And when the first test is executed or any other test is executed, this line of code that is in beforeEach will be executed, which is going to the login page. So let's see. So it went to the login page. Now the first test will be executed. So it's going to enter the username, password, and then click the submit, and then we check the secured area to check the successful, and then the message, successful login message, and afterEach is being executed. So the first test ended. So after each test, so at the end of the first test, the afterEach will be executed, and this is making sure the logout button is visible, and it's going to click the logout button and it's going to log out. So the first test case is complete, and it's going to execute the second test case, and before each of these test case, it's again going to execute the beforeEach, going to the home page, and then it's going to execute the test, and at the end it's going to log out. So let's do that. And in the same way, the third test, before executing the third test, it's going to do the beforeEach block of code being executed, and then the third test, which is the wrong password, and we type the wrong password and we check the message. And at the end of this test, once this line of code, which is the last line in the test, is being executed, after this the afterEach will be called. So as you can see, the afterEach method is called, and the script inside this afterEach hook is executed. So it's going to click the logout button. In this scenario, we didn't log in successfully, so there is no logout button. So that's why we check the button is visible, because this logout is not applicable to this scenario, for example. So you can program your test like that. So afterEach is done, and it's going to open a new browser, and it's going to execute the next test. And as we saw before, the beforeEach test is being executed, and then it's going to the new test and runs the code there, and then the afterEach in the same way. So you can see all of these beforeEach and afterEach are executed. So, and after executing all the tests, it's finally going to execute the one-time cleanup at the end. This is going to happen only once, just like the beforeAll happened in the beginning of the test, beginning of this executing this suite. In the same way, the afterAll is going to be executed after all the tests in this suite have been executed. So let's see. So there is one more test case to be left to be run, and there is one more. So let's continue. and the same way it executed everything. And the afterAll also has executed, but since we have nothing in that afterAll code, it's just a log, so it didn't happen. And there is some failures here, but you understood the concept here. And then what happened is the test suite executed, but we have another test suite in the same test script, Playwright test script file. So that also has its own hooks before each, and it has its own set of tests. So you can have many suites in the same test script, and each suite can have its own before each and all these hooks. So you can have this before each, before all, after each hooks in each test suite. So you can customize it for each test suite. But if you want all the hooks to be common across all suites, you can do that also. And I have a ready-made script for that, and I will show you the structure. So right now we have the suite 1 and the suite 2. So suite 1 has the name and the different test cases and all the hooks. So it has a before all, before each, and some tests there, and after each, after all within their own suite. Now this is a completely different suite. This is the account management suite, and it has its own test cases, and you can see it has its own hook. But this is individual hooks for each test suite. But in some scenarios, you might need a global hook. That is, you don't want to have before each in each suite. You might want to have before each that is common for all suites in this spec, the test script. So that also you can do. All you need to do is take these hooks and then put it at the top of outside the suite. So you can, when you do that, it becomes a global hook. And how that will look like, I will show the updated script in a minute. So that'll look like something like this. So this is a newly rewritten, and here you can see the hooks are global. What that means is the before all, after all, before each, after each, they are no longer inside each suite. We have removed them, and then after all, even though the suites continue to have their own hooks, we can still have a global hook that can reside outside the suites. So you can use global hooks and local hooks at the same time. The global hooks, for example, they might log in, let's say, starting test suites, a regression test suite, and they can say regression test suite completed in 4 minutes. So you can do all those common things across all suites. So that is one of the powerful features of Playwright. So it can run across all tests. So it's going to run once the before all and after all, and before each and after each, it's going to run after each suite. And you can see that in action when you run the script. So I will put the script in the GitHub code repo, and you can take a look at it and test it for yourself. And another cool thing you can do is you can even add a name like @smoke or @regression in your test suite name. So let's say this suite is a smoke and this suite is a regression. You can call them as regression test, and then when you run the script, when you run the command, you can simply say, instead of saying test dot giving the whole test, the actual test name, you can actually specify the name of the test, the grep name. You can say npx playwright and then -- grep, the grep command, and then the @smoke. So whichever test has the name @smoke will only be executed. So this test will be executed. So when you have hundreds of tests, you can use this simple hack trick to name only certain tests as smoke tests, so you can run those tests saying the dash dash grep smoke. So that's all we have learned for the hooks. So you can see how they help in creating a maintainable and less messy code, well organized, and that's all you need for a good maintenance. As you write new test cases every day, you not only make sure that they all run fine, but you need to organize them. So in the long run, this organization helps in a big way when you use the hooks and the describe groups. So that's how easy it is to maintain when you use the hooks. It is easier to read and easier to debug, and that's it. With hooks and groups, you get clean, reliable tests without repeating yourself. So if you like this video, you give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe. And thank you for your time, and happy testing.